The United States is stepping up its military build-up in the Caribbean amidst the rising tensions with Venezuela. The Pentagon has deployed its most advanced aircraft carrier to the region. Venezuela's leader Maduro has warned that the move is steered at fabricating a war. The American President Donald Trump has launched a military campaign targeting boats allegedly used to smuggle narcotics in the region, destroying at least about 10 vessels in a series of strikes. The U.S. has already deployed at least about 8 U.S. naval ships, a submarine and 10 F-35 stealth warplanes to the area near the coast of Venezuela. Now, this marks the largest American naval deployment in the Caribbean since the Cuban Missile Crisis, and there are already roughly about 6,500 Marines and sailors in the region, as well as 3,500 troops nearby. Now, the US's Gerald R. Ford, with its dozens of stealth fighter jets and surveillance aircraft, will join the existing US forces in the area. And once the Ford arrives, the United States will have roughly as many ships in the Caribbean as it used to defend Israel from the Iranian missile strikes earlier this summer. Now, this comes after the latest strike on a boat that the Americans claimed was a drug trafficking boat that was used by the gang Trende Aragua. The 6 people were killed in the American attack, taking the death toll from such strikes by the Americans on these boats to over 43. Now, the American military build-up has sparked fears in Venezuela that Washington's ultimate goal is to overthrow President Nicolas Maduro. Now, later on Friday, Nicolas Maduro accused the Trump administration of stoking a new eternal war. The U.S.-Venezuela standoff has also drawn in Colombia's Gustavo Petro, a sharp critique of the American strikes. Gustavo Petro, who has accused Donald Trump of murder over the strikes on the alleged drug boats, was sanctioned by the American Treasury on Friday along with his wife and son. And now reports indicate that Gustavo Petro is considering ending the U.S. military presence on Colombia. Now, the United States has 2 naval bases, 3 Air Force bases and 2 Army bases in Colombia. The 2 naval bases are in Cartagena and Tolemeda, which host the joint military training operations. The 3 U.S. air bases include the Malambo, that is used for surveillance and for reconnaissance, and aircraft Palanquero, a key center for air operations and logistics, and the Apie Air Base, which supports air mobility and intelligence sharing. And 2 Army bases are in Larandia and Tolemeda, which support counterinsurgency and drug interdiction operations. Now, these developments have come at a time when China's influence in Latin America is growing pretty dramatically. Beijing is Latin America's 2nd largest trading partner, and trade between the two has soared to $518 billion last year. Now, China has also emerged as a key source of development finance, with countries such as Venezuela borrowing nearly about $60 billion worth of Chinese state loans. And experts fear that this could, of course, push economically unstable countries like Venezuela into a debt trap. Interestingly, the last time that Venezuela had accused the United States of sending troops to its land, Colombia was at the other end of the equation. In May 2020, Caracas had foiled an attempt to infiltrate Venezuela by sea and remove President Maduro from power. The 2 U.S. mercenaries were detained, along with 17 armed attackers were arrested. Maduro had blamed the attempt, known as Operation Gideon, on the U.S. government and Colombia. Now, Trump was president at the time as well. He had denied any involvement, saying that if the United States had taken part in the effort to overthrow the Venezuelan government, it would have been an invasion. Now, more than 5 years later, the same players are on the board again. The question, of course, is an invasion in the offing this time round? All right, now joining us all the way from Caracas in Venezuela, we've got Mr. Diego Sequeira, who's a journalist and a political analyst. He works in the independent Mission Verdad outlet. Mr. Sequeira, thank you very much indeed for joining us here on WION. Now, it quite clearly is evident with the repeated drug boat strikes which the Americans claim that they are carrying out to clamp down on drug trafficking. The temperature in the region has gone up. Give us a sense of how Venezuela is looking at the fact that repeatedly the United States has been moving in its forces closer to Venezuela and has been taking out these boats.
Regardless of the obvious military movement as we are seeing, and you just reviewed, still I think the major, still for now, for the time being, the major component seems to be the psychological one. And I think that maybe one of the reasons that there hasn't been large-scale kinetic action is precisely to see if this ramping up provokes any kind of reaction or breakdown, or pushes the situation into a breaking point in which society or segments of the government could turn in against our president, or some sort of, riots and situations on the streets, which are, neither of them are actually happening, not even close, neither on the political level or the social level. One more time, I've been stating several opportunities. If you walk through Caracas right now, you don't get the feeling that we are all worked up because of imminent military action or invasion, regardless of what the outcome could be. So I think that it has a strong psychological component yet.
It has a strong psychological component, is how you describe it. Now, the United States has backed opposition leaders in the past in Venezuela, right from Juan Guaido to others. But what do you think is the American game plan in Colombia? Colombia is a close ally of the United States of America. The Americans have their military bases there. Why is the United States sanctioning the Colombian leader, Gustavo Petro? What does it do to the American presence in that region?
Well, Petro, it's you can call it, if you want, an outlier in Colombian politics. It's like the first left-wing Bolivarian sovereignty, independent-prone president that they have had in decades. I mean, even probably in the whole Colombian history. And of course, it always has had the hostility especially of Marco Rubio, one more time. So it seems that while they expand the conflict to a wider theater of operations, it was kind of a logical consequence that Gustavo Petro would become part of the equation. Not only because of what he has recently stated regarding the attacks on small boats, which also many of them have been Colombian ones, according to even to Colombian fishermen's statements, and but also it has to do with the two other elements. One of them, it's the stand regarding Gaza, regarding the condemnation of genocide led by Israel, and the other one is also Colombia has been also doing consultations to join BRICS, right, as we saw last year in Kazan. So those are elements that are there also.
I think those are two important points that you've pointed out. Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Diego Sequeira, for joining us with that perspective all the way from Caracas in Venezuela.